Why would you be concerned about an entity like P-Solutions or SSV Management?
You know, that's a great question looking back on it now, because if I had any idea that this would blow up this way, I would have figured out, I probably would have stayed on and just disclosed it, because again, I was already publicly on the record on those companies. I mean, anybody who does a corporate search under my name will see that at one point I was a manager of P-Solutions. So it wasn't about hiding that I was involved in P-Solutions. It was about sending a message to me that going forward, I'm not involved in these companies anymore.
Well, why, and this is a disclosure form about past activities, not a declaration of future activities. So why would not disclosing P-Solutions or SSV Management satisfy the objective of convincing the voters that you wouldn't have outside interests?
Well, no, actually, part of it is and part of it isn't. I mean, the part about the $5,000 or more within the prior year, that is about the past. But the part about name of organization or entity for which the filer serves on the board of directors or in any other formal advisor capacity is about the future. It's about the moment in time in the future.
How have you reached that conclusion?
Well, because it doesn't say anything about the past.
Have you read the statute?
Well, since then I have. I think it confirms what I'm saying.
Okay.
Now, if it doesn't, then excuse me for not reading the statute. But I'm assuming, as I sit here, that this mirrors the statutory language, and I believe it does. I've read it since then. And so my thinking was, well, these companies have not really been engaged in business for iAware for a long time. And P-Solutions, I hadn't done any consulting for P-Solutions for at least 6 months. I had no plans to do future consulting with P-Solutions. The cement project had gone away. And so I felt like, you know, I can dissolve these companies. And if I had dissolved these companies on the spot, it would have been a non-disclosure as well. I could have dissolved them, or I could resign as manager. And my thinking was, I don't want to just dissolve these things, because who knows, someday I may want to get back involved in things after I'm done with Attorney General. I've spent the money to organize these things. I've got the trust. And even though the trust hadn't been utilized, and I'll say it, I mean, you know, very carefully. And I went over that with Lee as well. I said, I haven't followed all the formalities on the trust. Does that make a difference? He said, absolutely not. This isn't a distribution from the trust. He said, it doesn't matter. You're not legally entitled to that income. Therefore, this is not income to the filer. And I got to tell you, Matt, I regret every single day, looking back on it, that I didn't, you know, just stay on the board, stay as a manager, and just disclose it. Because if I'd had any idea Jeremy Johnson was going to do this, if I'd had any idea that P-Solutions would become this embroiled, I mean, you've seen the numbers. This wasn't a big project. This wasn't like for 3 years I'd conspired to do something crazy with this thing. And so that was the thought process I had at the time I made these disclosures. And I testify under oath that at the time I filed this form, my intent was to be fully accurate and fully honest, and not to hide anything from the public in any kind of a deceitful manner. That's my testimony, and that's the conviction of my heart. And so I wanted to be careful, though, and do the right thing. I talked to my lawyer. And that's not all I did. I wanted to be very careful, and you know, I went down and saw him down in Provo with the forms. And he came with the same conclusion as we really dug into it for a little longer. And then, because I wanted to be extra careful before the 15th, and I don't know if it was before or after, but I think it was before. I don't know why I would have talked to Tom Roberts after the 15th, because after I filed this the last time, I forgot about it and moved on. I met with I think the preeminent election lawyer in the state who represents the elections office. And I think it was on the phone. But I described to him what I'd done, what I had, and the advice I'd gotten from Lee McCullough. And the first thing he said to me was, this sounds a little funny. Let me look into it. And then he called me back, or came back to me a few days later, or a little while later, and he said, you know what, John, you're right. It says income to the filer. That's a reasonable position to take.